everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be telling you about my TBR for the month of Victober. I will leave links to all the brilliant hosts of Victober down below in the description box. This is the second year Victober has ran and it is the second year I am participating, and it is a month about reading more Victorian literature than you normally would. So when we talk about the Victorian period, we talk about the reign of Queen Victoria, which lasted from 1837 to 1901. We're also talking about literature written by authors in that time period who are from the UK or Ireland. During the Victorian period, Ireland was part of the UK and it is no longer, but that is the reason we include Irish authors when we're talking about the Victorian period, is because at the time, Ireland was part of the UK. So yeah, the Republic of Ireland is no longer part of the UK, Northern Ireland is, but anyway, that's another discussion. It just gets on my nerves a little bit when people blanket define the UK to include the Republic of Ireland and don't make that distinction. And if we didn't include Ireland, we would miss out on a bunch of incredible writers. Some of them I'm going to talk about today, but also including writers like Oscar Wilde. Okay, anyway, that ramble over. Last year I took part in Victober and it was really great because it coincided with a Victorian literature module I was doing as part of my final year of my degree. So Victober really helped my required reading become enjoyable. I had a really fantastic time. Over the last couple of years, my opinions on Victorian literature really have shifted. I think, like a lot of people, I had a huge number of preconceptions about what Victorian literature was like. And I think that's one of the really great things about this readathon. It gives you a chance to re-examine your preconceptions and challenge them a little bit. There are 5 challenges for the readathon, and I'm going to go through them now and tell you what I'm going to be reading for them. So the first challenge is one that I think is incredibly important, and that is to read a book by an author who is from Wales, Scotland, or Ireland. When we think about the Victorian period, we so often think of the English writers. So I think that this challenge is really great in that it is really encouraging you to expand on the Victorian writers you may have already read from. For this one, I have actually gone for a Scottish author. Some of the other books that I have picked for later challenges are by Irish authors. So the book I am going to be reading is The Adventure of the Six Napoleons and Other Cases by Arthur Conan Doyle. In here are a number of stories from the Sherlock Holmes series. Arthur Conan Doyle was Scottish. I read a few of the Sherlock Holmes stories when I was younger, maybe when I was around like 15, 16, and I'm really looking forward to diving back into them again. I have 2 other parts of the Penguin English Library Sherlock Holmes stories, and I wasn't sure which ones I was supposed to start with, if there are any that I should start with, if it doesn't matter. But these are the ones that I'm going for. That may change. In the rest of my TBR, I do have some Irish authors in there, and I do have 1 English author. If you have any recommendations for Welsh authors, because I think it would be good for me to read a Welsh author, seeing as I live in Wales, then hopefully I might have the time to slot them into my TBR at a later date. And with having Irish authors later on in my TBR, if I need to, and I'm running out of time, I can always cut this one out and double up on challenges. Victorian literature isn't something that comes massively easy to me, although I do enjoy most of the Victorian literature that I have read. But yeah, if things get a bit too hectic or heavy, I am able to double up on challenges. And one of the challenges I have decided to double up on is the second challenge, which is to read a book that was recommended to you. I feel like all of the books in my TBR have been recommended to me, so that's the challenge that I'm going to be doubling up on. The next challenge is to read a Victorian book that has some spooky or supernatural elements to it, and I think this one is a great idea seeing as we are going into the month of October. So for this, I have decided to read Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla. Here we have the first of our Irish writers. Last year for Victober, I read Dracula by Bram Stoker, another Irish writer. I read Dracula for the first time, and I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. But I have heard that Carmilla is even better. The reason why the 2 draw comparison is because they are both early works of vampire fiction. Carmilla is about a young woman who is preyed upon by the eponymous female vampire. Apparently there are some lesbian undertones, or perhaps overtones, I'm not sure, I've not read it, to this story, so I am really excited to get to it. Next challenge is to read a lesser known Victorian book. And the way that it's being categorised is a book that has under 12,000 ratings on Goodreads. So for this, I have gone for a book that I hadn't even heard of prior to the announcement videos for Victober, and that is Esther Waters by George Moore, another Irish writer that I'm going to be reading in this readathon. I'm going to read you the blurb for this one. Esther Waters is forced to leave home and become a servant in a well-to-do household. Seduced in a moment of weakness, she has to leave her position, and the novel charts her poignant story of poverty and hardship. First, the lying-in hospital, then service as a wet nurse, and even the workhouse as she struggles to look after her child. Adapting the French literary practices of sexual frankness and social exploration to the British climate, Moore produced his masterpiece in Esther Waters. A landmark in publishing history, it is also one of the finest of naturalistic novels. So I'm really excited to get to this. It is one of the first novels to defeat Victorian moral censorship. So I think it would be really interesting to look at this book in terms of the history that surrounds it, as well as the actual content and the text. And as the blurb notes, it features sexual frankness and social exploration, and they are two big ticks for me when it comes to choosing books. And the final challenge for Victober is to read a book by a female writer. This is the only book in my TBR that is by a female writer, which I'm kind of disappointed in myself for. I did think about picking up a George Eliot novel for Victober, but there wasn't one that really fit the other challenges for me. And actually, when it comes to Victorian literature, I am so often drawn to the female writers. So reading more male Victorian authors is actually pushing me slightly out of my comfort zone. Anyway, the book I'm going to be reading for this challenge is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I read this when I was very young, probably too young for me to quite get to grips with it. It did take me a long time to be able to get to grips with Victorian literature. And I think that's why I had slight animosity towards it for a while. Some people have the tools and the ability and are well equipped with Victorian literature from a very early age. I was not one of these people. I definitely came to appreciate Victorian literature in university, so hopefully now that I'm coming back to this as a more experienced reader, I will enjoy it a lot more. I did enjoy it the first time around, but I don't think I appreciated it enough. I am not the biggest fan of the other two Bronte sisters, Charlotte and Emily. I think it's because their books feature a lot of gothic or romantic elements in them, which isn't something that I really gravitate towards in fiction. But The Tenant of Wildfell Hall is a lot more realist, and I will read you the blurb for this one as well. This sensational, hard-hitting and passionate tale of marital cruelty sees a mysterious new tenant at Wildfell Hall, unmasked not as a wicked woman as the local gossips would have it, but as the estranged wife of a brutal alcoholic bully desperate to protect her son. Using her own experiences with her brother Branwell to depict the cruelty and debauchery from which Helen flees, Anne Bronte wrote her masterpiece to reflect the fragile position of women in society and her belief in universal redemption. Really excited to get to this one. Think I'm going to really enjoy reading it, as I will with all of the other books that I'm reading in Victober. So they are all the books that I'm going to be reading in the month of Victober. I'm really looking forward to it. Let me know down below if you're participating, which book you are most excited to get to. If you've done a TBR video and I've not already checked it out, please do let me know and I will pop on over to your channel to have a look. That's it for me for now, but I will talk to you guys in my next video.